Okay. I look forward all week to being here. I know you think, of course you do, Dave. It's your job. You have to be here. But I look forward to being here all week to see you. Now, I don't mean to minimize all the folks who are connecting with us online in the live stream. It's been a really remarkable year and a half. And we've made connections with people literally all around the world. There are nursing homes all across the country that this is their Sunday morning church. They put the live stream on in their community rooms, and there are folks probably watching right now who are shut in and who can't go out, so we come to them. I've received cards and letters and emails literally from all across the country, from Canada, from Mexico, from South America, folks whose churches were shut down because of the pandemic, and they somehow found Riverbend. And I'm thankful for those connections, for those opportunities. But what I'm really, truly thankful for is you, that you're finding your way back here. Thank you for being here. Because this is what this is about. It's not about a program, it's about our community. It's about connecting with each other. And so as the pandemic started to kind of give us some freedom to reconnect, we had conversations about how do we get people to come back? And we weren't sure if any of you would come back at all. So we said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to seduce them with food. We're gonna have food trucks come during the summer. So we have these amazing food trucks every week. And the idea is that after our gathering here, you go out and you hang out. And I realize it's hotter than the backside of the sun out there, but we're Texans, we can handle this. And so you eat some Asian chicken, or you eat some great burgers, but more importantly, you hang out with each other. And we thought, well, you know, if you can manage to get yourself here, we'll at least give you an opportunity to have some food. But there's more to it than that. We need to be here. You see, 2,000 years ago, there was this outrageous experiment that began. And it was this idea that there could be a place, there could be a community that transcended prescription, that transcended prerequisites, that transcended prejudices. A community that it didn't matter what your story was, or where you were in your journey, your class, or your race, or your gender, or your preferences in life did not matter. This is a place where you could come together without prejudice, without prerequisite. The only requirement is that you be loved. And this grand experiment called the church, and granted, over 2,000 years, we've gotten it wrong a lot. And we've cut corners and messed it up. But in its essence, what this is each of us making each other better. By being together and having a shared experience, we are actually making each other better in this mosaic, this symphony, this alchemy of community. Everyone has a voice. Everyone has an instrument to play. Everyone has a contribution to make. See, I'm crazy enough to believe that we each, fashioned in the image of God, have been given capacities and talents and gifts. And it is our destiny, it is our mission, it is our purpose to invest those in others, to share them with each other. And simply by being here on a Sunday morning, you are contributing to the affirmation and the encouragement of people you may have never met before. I mean, you know what it's like when you're here and you see someone from work and you're like, oh, you're shocked? I didn't know that they went to church, and they're just as shocked to see you, trust me. They're like, I didn't know that jerk would show up in a church. And just by your sheer presence here, you're actually encouraging someone, affirming someone, validating someone in their spiritual curiosity, in their spiritual development and their journey. All of us have a contribution to make. And I don't believe that's a small thing. I believe that's everything. That is why we are here. That is our destiny. It is our mission. It is our purpose. And the prayer has always been for 2,000 years that the people of the church, that you and I would not just be loved, but that we would be loving. And the paradox of the church is that you can come and be loved, but you fulfill your destiny by being that for someone else. And this is the prayer that has always been prayed 2,000 years ago. A prayer was prayed over the young church in central Turkey, in the small city of Ephesus. In what we have as Ephesians chapter 3, there's a prayer that the apostle prays over the Ephesian church and prays over us. He says, for this reason, because of your destiny, because of your mission, because of your identity together, I kneel before the Father, the one from whom all families in heaven and on earth derive and gain their identity and their name. And I pray that out of God's glorious riches, that you may be filled with the power from His Spirit in our souls, in our inner beings, so that we might know that Christ dwells in us through faith. This is the prayer that has always been prayed over the church, that we would understand our identity, our individual value, our contribution, our mission, and our destiny. How does that happen, though? How do we find our purpose? How do we find our reason? How do we search out what is my gift? What is my talent? What is my ability? Is it my ambition? Is it my passion? Is it my desire? Is it some capacity that I'm unaware of? How do we find it? Well, we find it here together. That's the point of this place. And so today I want to interrogate that idea. How do we discover our instrument? If we are all in this symphony and we all have a contribution to make, how do we figure out what that is? And I want to share with you 5 questions. I want to share with you 5 simple questions that if we interrogate ourselves, maybe we can get an idea of why we are here, of what our purpose and our gift is. But before we begin the interrogation, would you pray with me for a moment? Father in heaven, I would ask that the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart would be pleasing in your sight. That you would use your word spoken by your servant and anointed by your Spirit to draw us to a place where we realize we matter and we make a difference, and that each of us has a priceless contribution to make. Pray that we would embrace that and pursue that and celebrate that today. Pray that for myself and for my family and for all of us here. For I ask that in Jesus' name, amen. I have this thing. I'm not proud of it. And it's not really bad, but it's a thing. I have a thing for musicians. Sorry, I've always admired, I've always had an affection for, I've always been attracted to people with musical talent. And it's played itself out in strange ways over the course of my life. If you look at the senior staff of Riverbend, we have any number of incredibly talented musicians on our pastoral staff. Pastor Kevin Hedges, Pastor Tylen Taylor, and Pastor Aaron Four, and Pastor Travis Taylor are all amazing musicians, not to mention the amazing Carlton Dillard and Casey McPherson. Do you realize who you hear every week? Every week you come to this place and you hear some of the finest musicians in this city performing for you, sharing their gift with you for free. You just have to show up. And they are pouring out, and Carlton and Casey are 2 of the finest musicians in this city, and they are top shelf musicians in this country. And we get to hear them, all the time. And I gotta admit, I'm a fanboy, and I have these crushes on musicians. And I remember the first professional musician who I ever became friends with was actually a couple. They were a young couple who graduated from North Texas State in their music program. He was in the 1 O'Clock Jazz Band, and she was a prolific singer-songwriter. Their names were Malcolm and Renee Johnson. And he was an amazing drummer, and she would write these songs. And we worked together for over a decade in our little church in Richardson. We did some amazing things. We actually put together an entire musical of the Book of Ruth, like Hamilton. I mean, it was songs, and it was the story of Ruth. And we were a little church. There were actually more people on the stage than in the congregation. It was one of the great artistic joys of my life was that production. But at one point, Renee Johnson and I wrote a song together. Because I was speaking at some youth conference, and I said it would be fun if I got up and I sang a song. And she went, maybe not. But she said, let's write a song, and maybe you'll be able to sing it. And so over the years, I've performed this song a couple of times, reluctantly. In fact, I have sung it here 12 years ago in 2009. And hopefully those of you who were here have completely forgotten the pain of that song. But today, I'm going to share the song that Renee Johnson and I wrote. Now, to pull this off, I'm going to ask the maestro, Kevin Hedges, to come and accompany me. Will you welcome Pastor Kevin Hedges? And this is a little song that I call The Preacher's Blues. I woke up Sunday morning, freight train in my head. Said I woke up Sunday morning, these two eyes were burning red. I said I gotta get myself together now. I gotta get out of this old bed. I gotta get to church now. Gotta tell you what the good book said. And people, that's my story. The Sunday morning preacher's blues. Play something, Kevin. Came to church this morning. What did I have to lose? Said I came to church this morning. How could I refuse? And I started teaching you people now, but you were sleeping in the pew. And I said to myself, I don't need this abuse. And people, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. The Sunday morning preacher's blues. Oh yeah. Please. Oh my goodness, do not actually affirm that. Which, that whole experience right there should lead us to the first question. How do we discover what our calling is? Well, the first question we can ask ourselves is, what do I do that I should not be doing? What is it that I should not do? Now, there are infinite things that we should not do. I should not do brain surgery. I should not play in the NBA. I should not play in the NHL. I should not probably sing in public. And we go through our life learning about the things that we're better off not doing. That's part of our journey. And while they don't tell us what we should do, we kind of narrow the field by saying, what am I called to do? What is my gift? Well, we narrow the field by saying, okay, I know what I'm not gifted at. I know what I'm not called to do. And there's three ways that we kind of make that journey. The first one is we sort of have a relationship with the obvious. We realize that we are genetically or physically or just mentally unable to be great at something maybe we have a passion for or a curiosity about, but we discover over the course of our life, I'm never really going to be that good at that. And it's obvious because of our physical limitations or our talent limitations or our intellectual limitations. The second way that we find out about it is by trial and error, by trying things. And we try things and we go, I suck at that. I'm never going to do that again. Or probably the harshest way that we learn what not to do is we get American Idoled. We get people telling us, no, you're not as good a singer as your mother said you were. And so people who are honest with us, they say, no, you probably shouldn't do more of that. Because what we're pursuing not is what we're capable of, but something that we're called to do, something that we can do at the highest level, because I believe all of us are made in the image of God, and we have a divine appointment, a divine capacity, a divine gift. And the first question we can ask ourselves to find out what that is, okay, what isn't it? The second question we can ask ourselves is, what is it that I do that other people ask me to do? That people seek me out because people are asking me, will you do this? They have a positive experience with us. They affirm in us that ability, that capacity, that desire. It's the affirmation that comes because we're being responsible. You see, I think we all have a responsibility to help each other, to serve each other. And a lot of times we are asked to do things that we think are beneath us, or we don't have time for, or we have no appetite for, no passion for. Can you come and help me move? Can you give me a ride to the airport? Can you dog sit my dog? Can you watch my children? Can you help a person out? And I think we have a responsibility to serve each other, to care for each other, to help each other. But it's in that caring and that serving that we discover the things that are meaningful to other people. The only way we discover what we are good at, what we are truly great at, is by making ourselves available, by sticking our hand in the air and say, yeah, I'll try it, I'll help, I'll serve. And maybe we discover that's not my gift, but it still matters. It's still a contribution. And in that availability, making ourselves available, we begin to surface those things that we're passionate about, that we're good at, that we have a talent for. But if we never make ourselves available, we'll never really discover or affirm, and then people will see it and say, you're good at that. Can you help us with this? Can you contribute more? See, these first two ways are simple questions. What have I discovered that I'm not good at? And what have other people told me that I am good at? Now, the last three questions flow out of that prayer that the apostle prayed over the Ephesian church. And the first question is, what is the thing that I do that brings people together? What is it that I do that brings people together? You see, I have this theory, and this is a working theory that's fairly recent with me, and it's this idea that our gift, your calling, my purpose, my mission is not to segregate people, but to unite people, to bring people into a place where it doesn't matter what their identity is, because we're all drawn to that contribution that someone is making. We've all had that experience. Ideally, that's what the church is. The church is a place where we come together and we share our capacities recklessly. We share our capacities without a filter. You see, this is I think this is how we discover our calling. We discover our calling by sharing our gifts, by sharing our talents, by sharing our abilities without regard for the people that we're sharing them with. Writers write, singers sing, healers heal, helpers help, teachers teach, leaders lead, servants serve, first responders respond. And they respond without concern for who it is I am responding to. I run toward the gunfire or I press into the burning building, and I don't ask for a resume of the person that I'm rescuing because I'm called to this. And I believe as we make ourselves available to that call and we share without prejudice our talents and our abilities with others, it brings people together. So ask yourself, what is it that I do that brings people together? I think this is what the apostle is praying for in Ephesians 3. When he says, for this reason, for the reason of bringing you together, I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives, and it's not just the word name, it means identity. It means their identity. I kneel before the Father that I might be a person who brings people together because of their identity as children of God. That's a hallmark of a gift, of a true spiritual calling. The fourth question is a paradox. What do I do that forces me to rely on God? If you have some idea of what your gift is. Let's say you are a gifted physician or a gifted musician or a gifted artist or a gifted writer or a gifted teacher, and your passion is genuine, and you really love the opportunity that you have to do people's taxes. God bless you. Or you have this incredible ability and insight into writing code, or into understanding the nature of story, or you're a gifted teacher or a caregiver, or you're a gifted plumber. You understand that in that calling is a desire to be great. And it's not just a desire to do what you do just well. You want to be the best. You want to be perfect. But you see, this is the paradox of it. The paradox of our calling is that our calling is a mix of ambition and anxiety. It is an ambition of confidence and insecurity. It is a mix of narcissism and humility. Because I think when we want to be great and we want to be perfect, and for the purest of reasons, because I want to serve you. I want you to have the best experience possible. I'm a gifted chef, and I want you to love the food that I am preparing. I'm a gifted teacher, and I want you to understand, to gain knowledge. I want to do it perfectly, and I realize I can't. So at some point, I have to abandon my own ability and trust in God's ability. See, I think this is what the apostle's praying for in Ephesians 3, down in verse 16, where he says, I pray that out of his glorious riches, the gift is his, not ours. He's entrusted it to us, that we would be filled with the power of his Spirit. That God would empower that calling, that glorious richness that God has given us. And that would flow out of us from our inner being. I think this is the question. It's the question of what do I do that I always walk away going, that wasn't as good as I wanted. but it is a thing that I cannot not do. I have to do it. It is the mix of arrogance and humility. It is the person who says, when the game is on the line, I want the ball. When the spotlight is turned on, I want it to be me. When a life is hanging in the balance, I want to make the decisions that save it. That's an arrogant proposition, but it's also layered in a humility. It says, God, I can't accomplish this without your help. If you have functioned at all in your area of giftedness, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. As a parent, as a teacher, as a doctor, as a musician, as an accountant, as a carpenter, doesn't matter. Your desire for excellence always requires that I rely on God and God at work in me. The last question is a question of what do I do? What is that thing that I do when no one notices? When no one sees it? What do I do when no one is watching? When no one applauds? When there is no audience? What is that thing that I cannot not do? And, we're caught up in this idea that excellence or success is really a measure of accomplishment or acquisition. And if we accomplish certain things or we acquire certain things or we accumulate the acknowledgement and affirmation of others, that has to be our gift. And part of that is true. If no one else sees your gift, you're probably not that good at it. But the reality is you're also a person who does this even if no one notices, even if no one applauds. The standard metric for how we know that we are successful is ROI. Is there a return on my investment? Am I profitable in the sense of the power or the fame or the wealth that I acquire? But God's metric is totally different. God's metric is one thing: am I faithful? Am I faithful to do what God has gifted me to do? Even when it's just for one person who may never even realize that I poured out my gift just for them. See, these are 5 questions. There are 5 questions no matter where you are in your life journey. You can be on the front end as a young adult who's trying to figure out what is my purpose, what is my mission, or you can be entering the final chapter of your life. And you're saying, okay, now that I'm at this point in my life, what is my life about? Why am I here? What is my purpose and my mission? You can ask yourselves these simple questions. What is it that I know I do that I should not do? What is it that I do that other people affirm, that other people ask me to do? What is it that I do that brings people together? What is it that I do that forces me to rely on God? And what is it that I do even if no one notices? In this interrogation, I believe we begin to narrow the field and begin to get an understanding of, okay, that's my instrument. In this symphony, that's what I'm called to contribute. That's the difference I can make. It is my purpose. It is my mission. I blame my mother, you see, because my mom was an elementary school music teacher, so I didn't have a chance. I got sat in front of a piano. I was going to sing. I sang in grade school choirs from the time I was in 2nd grade to the time I was in high school. Yeah, even in high school, believe it or not. I sang in high school musicals on stage. I danced and everything. It was obscene. But I would do it. And for years, I tried to learn to play the guitar. I think it was 3 or 4 times I would tell my mom, I'm ready to take lessons. And I would take lessons for 6 months and realize I hate this instrument. And then I'd yell, and she'd say, well, if you're going to have that attitude, you shouldn't have lessons. And then, so I'd quit, and then a year later, I think I can try it again. I think I did that 3 or 4 times. And I can't even play 3 chords on a guitar. By the time I got into 8th grade, somebody put a trumpet in my hand and said, try this. And so I did, and I played a trumpet for a couple of years. I was actually the bugler in my Boy Scout troop, and it was awful. I was the worst. Taps, I think it's 27 notes. I could mess up 22 of them. I was terrible. When I got into high school, I thought I'd give it one more chance. I was in the freshman band, and I decided I was going to play the French horn. And I was the #1 French horn player in our freshman band. That's me right there. Because I was the only French horn player in our band. I was terrible. But I've always had this thing for musicians. And I admire them, and I have an affection for them, and I like surrounding myself with their gift and their talent. But make no mistake about it. It's not my talent. It's not my calling. It's not my gift. See, I believe that each of us has an instrument, and we are in a great symphony. And the great experiment of this thing called the church is that we could come together without practicing, without prejudice, without prerequisites, and we can be loved, and we can be loving. This was always the prayer. This was always the prayer, that we would recognize our gift, our calling, our mission, our purpose. It's the prayer that the apostle prayed over the Ephesian church that I believe is prayed over us. The apostle said, for this reason I kneel before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth derives its name. And I pray that out of his glorious riches, that he would strengthen you with the power of his Spirit in your inner being, so that you will know that Christ dwells in your heart through faith. This is why we come together. This is why we have food trucks on the plaza, so that we can incentivize the idea. We need each other. It's not just me that needs you here. We need each other here. This grand experiment, this outrageous adventure called the church only works when each of us picks up our instrument and plays our part. So I want to invite you to hang around today, to hang around for a minute after we're done here in just a moment, and join me out on the plaza, have some Chinese fusion chicken, or have some great burgers and fries. And I know it's hotter than the backside of the sun out there today, but just find some shade and just introduce yourself to somebody and say, I don't know what I can do. Here's something you can do. Find a stranger and buy him lunch. Buy him a cold drink. Buy him a burger or fries. How great would it be if we all just paid for each other? How amazing. It would be the image of what this place is supposed to be. That each of us giving from what we have been given.